Connections. It's a great day today. Gina and I have a great guest on. We have Danny O'Malley on the show. I'm Barbara Hook with Hook Connect, where we connect you with the honest businesses. And Danny's story of his life just happens to fit in perfect because the honest business always gives the best customer service. And then Gina Scott Hawkins with Star Media. She does social media marketing, web design, and other design work. Welcome, Danny. It's great to have you on the show today.
Nice to see you again, Barb. Great to be here.
I'm your biggest advocate. I leave your business cards everywhere, which I do need some more of.
Oh, I can do that.
If I pump gas or if I go through a drive-through, which I was just telling him before the show started, the Speedway station near my house always has the worst customer service, and anytime I'm ever in line, I tag him in social media, so he knows that Speedway Corporate needs some customer service training.
I'm sure they do.
And I always leave a business card. And I found out last week that 3 of the people with the worst customer service there were fired, but for stealing. So it kind of goes hand in hand, you were talking about.
Yes, it does.
Welcome. I would love for you to start today by just telling us where did you learn customer service so well?
Well, you know the answer to that, but maybe our listeners don't. I learned customer service at the hand of my father, the master, the late Joe O'Malley, from the time I was about 8 years old, and he had me working in a little grocery store in Broad Ripple that he owned and lost after a couple of years, and came back and opened O'Malley Food Markets 10 years later. But he had me working in other grocery stores in the interim where he worked, most notably Preston's at 71st and Keystone back in the early 60s. And as I got older, everything he ever said to me, I watched it come true. And as for instance, at the Preston's in the early 60s, he and his partner, Francis Preston, that's where Sullivan Hardware is now.
Really?
And they bought the store. The guy that had it was doing $6,000 a week in the store. A year later, the store was doing $50,000. Wow. And I would hear the employees and the customers and even the Coke and Pepsi man say the reason the store's doing 800% more than it was is because of the way that guy treats people. So I know, I'm hearing other people tell me that everything he's telling me, is true.
Well, and something your dad, I remember in times I've heard you talk before that something your dad always said is that customer's always right. And you got to figure out how to help them and how to make things right by that customer. And that is so true in any kind of service industry job that, somebody may have had a bad day. You don't know that, and they don't,
They don't care.
No, they don't care. But just make it better somehow,
Make it better somehow. One of the most famous grocery stores in the world is a place called Stu Leonard's. It's in Norwalk, Connecticut. There's a big boulder in the parking lot. And this saying is chiseled into the boulder. There are 2 rules at Stu Leonard's. Rule number 1, the customer's always right. Rule number 2, when the customer is wrong, reread rule number 1. And that's the way we did it.
Very good. And I still enjoy to this day, even though it's a Marsh grocery store now, the O'Malley's on New Jersey and Alabama is absolutely the best store as far as people and their customer service. And I hear that there's some people there that have been there for years and years and years and years.
There are, and that is the reason the service still stands out among other. It's always the people, and obviously while the management of the whole organization has changed a lot, as long as there are a few of those people around, the service is going to stand tall. When they're all gone, however, we'll see.
Right.
Some of them, they're getting older and moving on. And
so can you remember an incident where you were just sure that this customer was just absolutely wrong, and your dad said to make it absolutely right? Tell us a story about that.
A specific story where I know the customer is absolutely wrong. Well, for instance, this would happen a lot in the meat department, and we were known very much for the quality of our meats. Pretty much when a customer would call in, say, 3 weeks in a row and say the steak was too tough, by that time, that customer's not preparing that steak correctly. And the thing to do is to convince that customer to talk to Frank the butcher or Joe the butcher, and we'll give you steaks this week, but you prepare them the way Frank or Joe says. That would usually solve the problem. You never know if the customer's truly right or wrong, but you got to act like the customer's always.
Well, and some people just never really learn how to cook.
Well, that's true too. That's true too. And there were times, and there is probably times in every business, where once in a while you might even have to say to a customer, "Gee, maybe you ought to try another store since we can't seem to, please you."
Right.
In the few times that I did that, never once did they ever try the other store. But you don't do that right off the top. You do that after you know this customer's unpleasable.
And I've even done that when somebody was really hard to handle with Hook Connect.
I'm betting you have.
And I have said, maybe you should go a different avenue. Maybe this company is not the best for you because I can see that price is always the most important thing. And a lot of times price is the most important thing to people. So
absolutely.
It has a lot to do with you just have to figure out what's the most important. Do you want customer service and value and quality, or do you just go by price?
Yeah, and if you just go by price, you're gonna have to put up with some inconvenience. The place where you shop might not carry everything you need. You might have to go somewhere else.
Poor quality.
And right, all of that, and then all of a sudden, the equation becomes, well, maybe I'm better off going where they've got everything I need and the quality's good, and
right.
And that goes for any business at all.
Well, Danny, this is live streamed, and it's also going to be played on the radio. So, would you please tell us how? Any of that corporate America or consumer or any speaking engagements might be able to reach out to you. Could you give your contact information, please?
I'd be glad to. My email address is dannyomalia@gmail.com. My phone number is 317-413-9062. And as Barb knows, I will get back to you.
Absolutely.
And Barb gets back to people.
Absolutely.
But we're in the minority.
Yeah. There's not very many. Sometimes you never hear back from people.
That's
where you leave a message. We are going to take a short pause before we start our next segment with Gina leading it. So until we return, enjoy the commercials.
When Margaret and I decided to sell the old estate here, we had only one choice in signage: Logan Street signs and banners. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore, but rather located on 10th Street on the south side of Noblesville. Well, we sold the old beauty, and we were able to buy this wonderful estate. And we had so much money left over, I was able to buy this beautiful 1968 Eldorado Cadillac for Margaret. Only 472,000 miles. Margaret loves it because it's got those big seats and that heavy-duty suspension to support her svelte frame. Next time you're looking for signs or banners, call old Jim at Logan Street Signs and Banners, 773-7200. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore.
Everyone knows it's easy to find first-run movies in the big theaters. But where can you go to watch your favorite classic movies on the big screen for the perfect night out? Why rent a flick when you can rent the entire theater? Call today to reserve our 32-seat theater for your next event, or just stop by to see what's showing this weekend. The 14 by 7 foot screen and the high quality digital surround sound system offers all the amenities you would expect from the big theaters, with a laid back atmosphere and comfortable seating of your own home. Wofford Theater at 1744 South 10th Street in Noblesville gives you the classic movies you want with a big theater experience.
did you say? Oh, welcome back to Hook Connect. We're here with Danny O'Malia, and before we started the show today, we was talking a little bit about what he is currently doing. And because customer service was so important to you and to the growth and the success of your stores, after that, and I guess maybe at the tail end of all of that, you wanted to start teaching other businesses how to succeed as well.
Right.
So talk to us a little bit about what you're currently doing and maybe some of the clients that you've had and just
Okay.
what are you doing these days?
Well, I started my own company, Indy's Trusted Servant, in 2009. Actually, I started doing customer service training and keynote speaking about customer service in 2007, shortly after I left the grocery business. I worked for someone else for 2 years, started my own company in '09. And what I do is I've got up to 6 hours of customer service training for companies that want that, but I can always also do a half hour or an hour keynote speech. And it's all about customer service, but it's also about how Joe O'Malia built a culture that enhanced customer service. And it's also about how companies like, to name some of the good ones, Nordstrom, Chick-fil-A, Southwest Airlines, to name three that stand out in their industry. How have they maintained customer service as they've gotten bigger? And I've studied up on that. And how have some companies failed in customer service? I don't know if I should mention any names here or not. You mentioned the Speedway store. I'll tell you one company that drives me up the wall is Best Buy.
Oh, me too.
And I just left Office Depot over here, and for the second time in 3 trips, they failed to have my daughter's prints ready when I was there to pick them up.
Wow.
2 out of 3. That'd be a good batting average in baseball, 1 for 3, but it's not a good batting average in having my daughter's prints ready.
Right.
And so I look into how those companies have failed to take care of their customers, but I also tell my clients how companies have succeeded. My best client is the Indianapolis Indians, and the Pacers are another client.
Wow.
But this past month, I also gave a keynote speech to the Hoosier Hospitality Conference
Wow.
down at the Embassy Suites, and that's a statewide organization of hotels, restaurants. I mean, Harry and Izzy's and St. Elmo's were there, hotels, and visitors and conventioners bureaus, not just the Indianapolis, but the Columbus and the Lafayette and all the visitors convention bureaus, they were all there. Next month, I do some not-for-profits as well. Next month, a new client's going to be the Indy Humane Society
Okay.
and their staff. And so I've got banks, I've got, landscaping companies, just a wide variety of companies that care about not just their customers, but their employees as well.
So pretty much you could service and help the staff of any industry.
Any industry, any not-for-profit, if it's an organization at all, it has a corporate culture. Is the corporate culture enhancing or detracting from service?
Sure.
And a company that wants to have a
We
corporate
could name
culture.
one of those, couldn't we?
You already did. You already did. Those are the majority. So,
Sure.
another new client is a dentist's office out in Avon. Somebody heard me speak at the Rotary Club a couple of months ago, and he said, "Why don't you come out and talk to my dental office?"
Wow.
It can be just about any organization at all, and even if you're given good service, if you want to keep giving good service, it helps to have a reminder that I need to keep my eye on my core culture.
Yeah.
I like to talk about situations where I've seen cultures go downhill, and people recognize that. You mentioned the guys at the Speedway. Gas station. A few years ago, I had a tremendous difficulty getting hold of a live person to talk to at a Sears store in Castleton.
Wow.
You didn't used to have trouble
Yeah.
talking to a live person at Sears, but you do today.
I saw a post yesterday from a lady that said she walked from one side of Walmart to the other just to get somebody to come 3 times to get somebody to come help her in the paint department.
Yeah.
I mean, because there was no, and she's just, it's ridiculous. And the stores really don't understand what that's doing, because there she is now blasting that on social media.
Oh yeah,
And
social
so
media
nobody will
is
go
killer.
and get paint there now.
It's killer.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of a story one of my clients told me. A fellow walked into Menards, and he couldn't find anybody in the, I don't know what department, the kitchen department. And there was a phone there, and it was a speaker, and he got, attention employees, I've been over here 10 minutes, please come. And he waits another 5 minutes, and he goes, attention employees, I asked you to come 5 minutes ago, I've been standing here 15 minutes, I'm going to Menards.
Wow.
You know, he was at Lowe's. And maybe it was Menards and he went to Lowe's, I forget, but
Regardless, they lost a customer.
lost the customer, and the story gets told. Now I got to go back to my notes and see which was which,
Yeah.
so I get it right.
Yeah.
But it was those two. That's the kind. Why is that? Well, they're saving money on labor by having fewer people there, and they're saving money on training by not training them very well.
Yeah.
But that's short-sighted.
So I'm sure a lot of times people refer you to companies that need help, but when you call, or I mean, because a lot of times people don't want to admit that they have a problem.
That's right.
So do you? I mean, when somebody refers, oh, I just had poor customer service at this place. I mean, do you call them up and ask them if they need some help?
I do, and
Yeah.
almost always they say they don't.
Yeah.
It's much better if I meet somebody, sit down and talk with them one-on-one, or they come to something like a Rotary meeting, or maybe Barb's Southside
Momentum ending.
event, yeah, and hear me talk and go, oh my gosh, my employees would get a great deal out of that. So that's the
Right.
best way. The person who is aware of his or her situation in their business with their customer service is rare indeed, but sometimes a light will go on
Yeah.
if they hear somebody say something, oh my gosh, I wish I'd have thought to get my customer employees to behave that way.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking here at some of these, and I don't know if these are like mottos that you guys live by here, or some just rules
Well,
of customer satisfaction.
I'm glad you brought that page up. That's my dad, when I came to work full-time for him in 1975, he put me in charge of handling complaints.
Okay.
And he said, this was a 2-hour meeting. He said, write these steps down. And then we went back and forth with those steps.
Okay.
And I can spend an hour talking about these steps. Some of them go by real quickly, but one of the ones that's really key is number 5 there. Return all calls unbelievably fast. My dad said this, and it's 1975, so it's stuck. He said, I'm not going to say as soon as possible. I'm going to say unbelievably fast.
Yeah.
And he said, beyond that, if you're in the office and you're not on the phone and you're not in a meeting, just take the call when the person calls in.
Yeah.
It'll blow them away. They won't believe it. That was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
It's even more so today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But if you call back, they understand that you can't be sitting by the phone waiting for them to call every second.
Right.
But if you call them back pretty quick, that's pretty impressive too. People still come to me
Right.
and say, boy, in 1998 you called me in an hour, you had the meat director on the phone in another half hour, the problem was solved right then, and I still remember. Why do they remember that? Because it hadn't happened to them since,
Right.
right?
Well, that's a great tip. There's some more, and we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back and talk with Danny a little bit more. Okay.
You know, when Margaret and I decided to sell the old estate here, we had only one choice in signage. Logan Street signs and banners. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore, but rather located on 10th Street on the south side of Noblesville. Well, we sold the old beauty, and we were able to buy this wonderful estate. And we had so much money left over, I was able to buy this beautiful 1968 Eldorado Cadillac for Margaret. Only 472,000 miles. Margaret loves it because it's got those big seats and that heavy-duty suspension to support her svelte frame. Next time you're looking for signs or banners, call old Jim at Logan Street Signs and Banners, 773-7200. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore.
Everyone knows it's easy to find first-run movies in the big theaters. But where can you go to watch your favorite classic movies on the big screen for the perfect night out? Why rent a flick when you can rent the entire theater? Call today to reserve our 32-seat theater for your next event, or just stop by to see what's showing this weekend. The 14 by 7 foot screen and the high quality digital surround sound system offers all the amenities you would expect from the big theaters, with a laid back atmosphere and comfortable seating of your own home. Wofford Theater at 1744 South 10th Street in Noblesville gives you the classic movies you want with a big theater experience.
Welcome back to Hook Connections. Today we have Danny O'Malley with us. It's always great to have him on the show. He's undergone a lot of stress in the last 6 months to a year, and he still has that positive personal growth, customer service attitude, and I just love that about him. You'll see a stack of books here in front of us, and a lot of those are on his list of books that he recommends that
The suggested reading list.
pretty much anybody should read. Danny, pick out the one in there that you think is your favorite and everybody would benefit by.
God,
Just one.
I love all of these. I think maybe my favorite's the Nordstrom Way, because this is very specifically about how Nordstrom has maintained its culture of service, growing from one shoe store, just a shoe store in Seattle, to what it is today. And it has so much good stuff in it, including the Nordstrom organizational chart. I don't know if I can find that. Yeah, here it is. I don't know how well this shows up, but when I have this in my PowerPoint presentation, and I ask my clients, what's funny looking about that chart? And they go, it's upside down. It's a triangle upside down. The reason is they put the customers at the top, the people that wait on the customers next, and the chairman of the board at the bottom. Mm-hmm. And then they talk a little bit about rules, and my dad was very big on this. We should have as few rules as possible. People should obey the rules, but we should also tell them what kind of rules they might need to break to take care of customers. Mm-hmm. We'll be strict on the dress code, but we'll be very lenient on refunds, for instance, okay? Because that's very direct to the customers. Why are we strict in the dress code? Because the customers want us to be. Everything for the customers, okay? Nordstrom is really good, and you hear all these stories about the Nordstrom employee leaving the store to go down to Macy's and get some perfume that they don't carry and bringing it back for a customer rather than letting the customer go to Macy's. That's a Joe O'Malley thing. Joe O'Malley used to do that with me when he had the little store in Broad Ripple. He'd send me down to the Kroger store to get stuff we didn't have room for. Anything to take care of the customers. Nordstrom is so good about that. And they quote one of their execs as saying, rules give employees another reason to say no to customers. That's why we hate rules. Mm-hmm. Their rule is use good judgment in all situations. And if running down to Macy's at the other end of the mall to get a perfume that you don't carry is good judgment, okay? So I love that. I'll also point out this little booklet here, The Simple Truths of Service. If you go to the website www.thesimpletruths.com, you will find books and DVDs and posters to put up in the break room, all very motivational and very inspirational stuff. And there are, in this little book, there are so many great customer service stories from every place, but from the San Diego Padres ballpark to the Ritz-Carlton Hotel and everything in between. Wow. So that's a very cool website, and anybody can use it, and the stuff is, this book and this wonderful little DVD that I show called Johnny the Bagger cost me $18. What an investment. I'll bet I've shown Johnny the Bagger to 20,000 people, and they love it.
Well, anybody that doesn't have books like this, and especially if they're a business owner, in their motivational reading list, they really should have. I mean, I know he gave me the list years ago, and I went out and bought half of them immediately. You know,
probably already read the other half.
Yeah. But it's just, it's all about the importance of customer service. It's so important. It's just so important.
Yeah.
And it's so missing today.
Right. And the Best Buy, I totally agree.
Oh
I
my
agree with
goodness!
the Best Buy.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
And the banking industry, the whole industry, they really mess up. They do have a lot of laws they got to follow, right? But they did just fail to empower their people left
My
and
bank,
right.
I don't know if it's because it's not because I deposit a lot, but I don't know
They might
what
recognize
reason
you.
is. But they always call me by first name.
What bank?
It's the Chase in Beech Grove.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting because I had a bad experience at the Chase in Carmel.
Yeah.
I have two bank clients, by the way. They're both community banks, Liston State Bank, Citizen State Bank.
Right.
I'm working on getting Salem Bank. I got a meeting with them next month. But none of the big banks would touch me with a 10-foot pole.
Right.
They got too much bureaucracy, and they don't care enough about customers.
Right.
We've got a couple minutes left, so talk to us about a success story that you've had with a client that you came in and did some customer service training for.
One of them might be the Rich Charles. Those of you who know the Rich Charles, Chuck Lazara, he founded Rich Charles in 1983, and it's a catering business up in Carmel. They do a lot of wedding receptions and high-end stuff, and the waiters and waitresses wear tuxes. And I was talking to Chuck, and he brought me in to do a 2-hour program for his people, and he said, when we first started with the tuxes and everything, everybody was really proud, but he goes, today, and it's 20 years later or more, they still wear them, but they don't get them pressed as often, and they slouch around. And so I told him my story about the baseball hat story. Long story short, we had Amalia baseball hats that the people in the deli and the meat department had to wear for hair restraints. And the people in the grocery department started asking if they could wear them. And we said, sure, but they're optional for you. And this was the early 90s now. Some store manager at 86 in town calls me and says, hey, my best stocker wants to wear his baseball hat backwards. I said, tell him no, the customers wouldn't like that. He says, that's what I thought you'd say. And then tell him it's optional, so no sweat if he doesn't want to do it, doesn't have to wear it. The store manager calls me back and says, the kid said to tell you that Ken Griffey Jr. wears his hat backwards. I said, good, the kid knows I like sports. Tell him that Ken Griffey Jr. might wear his hat backwards during batting practice, but when the game starts, he turns it around and wears it like he's supposed to.
Okay.
And tell him when he checks into the store, the game has started. And the store manager called me a couple of days later and said, the kid quit. I said, good. I don't care how good a stalker he is. He's not going to have us bring our standards down.
Absolutely.
And one of the other books, real quick, John Wooden, the greatest coach ever, on teamwork. I'm not looking for great players. I'm looking for players that make the team great. This guy was a great stalker, but he wasn't going to make the team great.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So he can quit if he wants and go to work somewhere else.
Wow, we could have him on for like 2 hours and get lots of information. So our show's almost over for today. Danny, I want to thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Barb.
I can't wait to have you in August down at Momentum Indy at Scotty's Brew House.
Looking forward to it.
And Gina, thank you for being here too and assisting me today. And we will see you next week when we will have Scott Jeske. And it's all about the new credit card processing that's going on. And then one segment is going to be a surprise segment, and it's going to be all about Scotty's Balls. And
All
Scotty's
right.
Balls is gluten-free eating of hamburger products. So
Okay.
it's something really interesting. So we will see you next week.
Thanks.